Welcome to the EduMagic New Educator Podcast, the go-to show for supporting new educators navigating the exciting journey from campus to the classroom. Join your host, Dr. Sam Fessich, for a blend of inspiration, advice, and practical strategies, one cup of coffee at a time.
I'm Brian Carpenter, host of Fresh Air at 5, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello, EduMagicians, and welcome back to another episode of the EduMagic Podcast. It is graduation season, and I am super excited to have our guest on today, Larry Tomiyama, and he's going to be sharing strategies to help you from campus to classroom as a first-year teacher. Larry, welcome to the show.
It is a pleasure to be here from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, Dr. Sam, and I'm happy to be here and share the things that I get to experience every year.
I am pumped to have you on. This podcast episode has been a long time in the wings, and I'm excited that we're able to record today. Before we jump into our content, the tips for helping new graduates kind of navigate their first classroom, would you mind sharing a little bit about your teaching philosophy and what you're currently doing in education?
Sure. So I was in K-12 education for 32 years. The last 8 years, but specifically the last 2 years, I worked a lot with at-risk and vulnerable students. So my last posting, I was principal at a school of 60 kids. The school was called Our Lady of Lourdes, and Our Lady of Lourdes was created to educate the most vulnerable, the most behavioral, kind of the last stop for these students to be able to get an education. And my second year of that, being in that school, I really believe that God provided that opportunity for me. And he told me, I showed you all these things. I showed you these students. I showed you how the staff works with them. Now you got to go share it. So I decided at that time, okay, I'm going to be finished with the district. And I don't know what I'm going to do, but anybody will listen, I'll go share it with. And so I resigned at that point. My wife was going to kill me because that wasn't part of the plan. But I did that. So now what I get to do is I get to share. So I teach at St. Mary's University in Calgary to graduating teachers. I teach a course that they let me create. It's called Working with Diverse Learners. I get to present to teachers. A few weeks ago, I presented to a group of bus drivers, administrators, leaders, really anybody who will listen with regards to what I learned, what those students and what that staff taught me. It changed and transformed what I believe in education, in leadership, and in life. And it's become the foundation of what I get to teach and how I get to teach it to as many people that'll listen. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I love that. And I want to hear more about this foundation. Would you be able to break it down for our listeners today?
Absolutely. You know what the best way, Dr. Sam, I could do it is through a story.
Perfect.
So one of my favorite students, for our purposes now, I'm going to call him Billy. Billy was in grade 3 at Our Lady of Lourdes School. Billy had been expelled from a number of schools before coming to us. And he's only in grade 3. So lots of behavioral problems, lots of trauma. And we got to educate him. And one day I got a call at my office. It was 8:45 in the morning. And the teacher said, Larry, Billy's not doing very well. He's coming down to see you. So I went out to the foyer. I saw Billy coming down the stairs to see me. And I knew things weren't going really well because he had his thumb in his mouth. He was sucking his thumb. And that's how he soothed himself. So he came down really, really irate, really, really dysregulated, started throwing chairs, anybody that was around him, he would try and attack. So we had to put him in what we call is our calming room. And our calming room is really a 6x8 room with a window in it, and it allows the students to calm down. He was really elevated, kicking, throwing, spitting, whatever you want to call it. So I just went into the room with him and let him kind of do his thing. And he finally calmed down. and he laid down in the back of the room. And I said, when you're ready, we can start, Billy. So I just sat down on the floor, and we must have been there. I don't know. It seemed like hours, but it was really, I think it was only about 10 minutes before. And then he army crawled towards me and put his head on my lap. And we just hung there for a few minutes. And he said to me, Mr. T, that's me, Mr. T, you can hurt me now. And I said, Billy, what are you talking about? And he said, well, when I act and say those things and I act like that at home, my brother beats the shit out of me. And so I said, listen, Billy, no one, doesn't matter what you say, what you do, what happens here, no one's going to hurt you here. That's why we're here to help you. And he kind of came around after a while, and he went back to class. And so the foundation of what I get to teach now is those kids showed me that nothing, and this goes for in a classroom of regular grade 2 kids, doesn't matter if they have differing needs or whatever it might be. It goes for principals when they're dealing with their teachers. Nothing sustainable can occur until the kids are safe. The kids feel safe. And safety means, and at our school, safety meant that our students could predict what was going to happen. They could predict how they were going to be treated. They could predict what was going to happen. They could predict that we were going to feed them. They could predict how life was going to be for them there. Because in the outside school, it was really unpredictable. And that goes for all kids too, that if they can't predict and know what's happening, that safety can occur. So that was the first, we need to create safety for our students. And my advice to the graduates that are going out there, when you start in September, that's what you have to do. And it's easy for many kids because you're the teacher, you're God, everything revolves around you, and they're going to feel that you're safe. But that's not true for all kids. And it doesn't matter if what the socioeconomic status is. So kids could come from $1 million homes and just not feel safe. So once we create that safety, then the next layer goes up. It's security. And what security means is I'm willing to try because I know how I'm going to be treated. Mm-hmm. And once we get there, because kids, whether it's math or whatever, what's stopping them from doing things, they don't want to fail. And even more so than ever, the students that are coming to you, the new kids are from their generation. It's called Alpha. And they're even more perfectionist than Gen Zs. Mm. And so you need to let them know that it's okay to mess up. It's okay. That's what we're here for. And it's going to be okay. And then once we get to security, then we can get to trust. And trust is I'm willing to fail because I know it could lead to something really good. And when we get there, the magic happens. When kids are okay failing and we show them, this is good. This is great. And one of the pieces of advice that first and second year teachers give to me that I pass on to our graduates is you're going to fail. Your class are going to bomb sometimes. And it's okay.
Yeah.
In fact, it's more than okay. In fact, that's how we learn. And you see what works for you, what works for your students, and what doesn't. And that never stops. So in a nutshell, Dr. Sam, that's kind of the foundation of what I get to teach and just strategies of those kids that are really more difficult to reach than others. We have to kind of go at them a little bit different way because their circumstances, their stories are not typical. And so we need to be patient and we need to love them in a little bit different way. But once you get them, once they get that safety piece, then lots of great things happen. And I got to witness that firsthand with the most difficult, the most saddest cases. The kids that I get to teach love the stories that I have. Some of them are ridiculously funny because you can't make up that stuff. And a lot of them are incredibly sad because of their stories. But we owe them the best that we can give them. It's not their fault what happened. And so we get to do that. And I think it's a tremendous privilege that we get to do that with our kids. It's not easy.
Right. You were telling your story, and in the beginning, you had said we got to educate. We, had the honor of educating students, and I think that that's such a powerful statement. And you had just started that off in your story, and then to continue on and talk about safety, security, trust. Those are all those building blocks, those foundational skills and attitudes that our students need to feel when they come into our classroom. They need to feel that value, that appreciation. I love how you said they need to be able to predict what's going to happen because they're in that safe, secure environment. And then once you have this foundational piece of set, that content, that classroom management just goes fluidly right into the classroom because they trust, they know that they're cared for, and they know that they're going to be loved on. Larry, that was beautiful.
Yeah. And I think what happens often is that we forget the safety piece and we go right to trying to help them. So when we do things a little bit backwards, it's not because we're doing it intentionally or we're meaning to do that way, but we try and help them. So if we have a student that has some anger management problems, okay, you need to count to 10. You need to breathe. Here's some breathing exercises to do. They're not ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand it. They don't feel that they're safe yet.
Right.
If they don't feel safe, then they feel they're backed into a corner. You're telling them what to do again, and you're going to get more behavior. And so until that we can prove to them that they are safe, which means that they're going to mess up a little bit in between, and then we have that opportunity to show them it's okay. You're going to be, okay, maybe you have to be outside of class for a little while, but you come back in.
Yeah.
I still care about you. I know you can do it.
Yeah.
So much of it's convincing them that they deserve the love, they're entitled to the love, and that it's okay to love somebody back. That once we convince, again, easier said than done, but once they're convinced of that, or once they believe that, again, super cool on what can happen after that.
I love that. Thank you so much for starting us off with that very powerful story. And I know that the listeners today are going to really be able to identify with that because it really speaks to teachers. And as we go and we pursue this calling of being an educator, it truly is more than just us. It's us being in community with our learners and helping them feel that safe, that security, that trust with another human. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let's jump into, you had mentioned in our conversation, you get to keep in touch with a lot of first through fifth year teachers. What are they sharing? What are some tips and strategies that they're sharing for new graduates as they enter their classrooms in August or September?
Yeah, I don't want to depress the graduates, but one of the first questions that I ask them is, on a scale from 1 to 10, tell me 1 or 0 being your undergrad education degree didn't help you at all, to 10 being, I know everything for that. And I said, on a scale from 1 to 10, your degree and the courses and your practicum, how much did that prepare you for the full-time job of a regular classroom teacher? And I get it. Basically, if there's a mean, it would be about 3.5.
I was going to guess a 6.
And it's just because the certainly, I bet you it would be probably maybe a 6 to an 8 if we talk just about teaching, planning, preparing, delivering lessons, reflecting, planning, going through all those assessment. But the job, there's so much more of that through that. Working with parents, report cards, LSPs, IEPs, whatever the special education expectations are and documentation that needs to occur. As with many places, there's a lot of new Canadians, new Americans coming into our schools. A lot of them don't have English. And so they have to be assessed as well. So the assessment goes into those students. If there's extracurricular that's happening, that what you're part of there. And just the organization and busyness of the day, having to think on your feet. There's an interruption that occurs as a fire drill, whatever it may occur, all those other pieces that there's no fault of the education programs. It's just that we have a short amount of time to try and prepare our students as much as we can, but to get to the whole thing. So the biggest things, and that they're saying that they weren't prepared for the amount of other things that need to be done as a teacher, and then managing your time, and then understanding that one of the biggest things that they had said to me to pass on to graduates that are coming into the job is when you start your planning and things, that plan in chunks. If you try and just do it day to day, you're going to bed at 1 a.m., getting up at 5 or 6 because you can't sleep because your head's going, and then you start all over again. So plan in chunks. Understand that you're going to get through what you get through. And it's not dependent on you. It's dependent on your students. And some days they're going to be amazing, and they're going to do way, way more than you think they are. And then other days, they're not ready for whatever reason. And you're not going to get through what you want to get through. But you have your 2-week plan. And if you can get close to that at the end, it's okay. It's okay. The other big thing that they had mentioned, or one of the big things, that it's okay just to be okay some days. You're not going to hit it out of the park. You're not going to have that amazing, this is why I got into teaching lesson every day, because it's not possible. So be okay with things being just okay. And it takes time. It takes experience. And a lot of them say, you know what, you just need to, it's not going to be easy, but you just need to keep things into perspective as much as you can. Find a colleague on staff that you trust, that you can go to and vent in the staff room if you have to or go to their classroom and say, hey, I'm struggling with this or whatever. They'll be able to reassure you that this happens to all of us. This is part of the job.
Yeah.
And it's going to be okay. And the other part is somebody that you trust at home, your significant other, your brother, your sister, your parents, whomever. If they see you changing, whether it's your mood, whether it's your attitude, make them promise that they're going to tell you, because you can get dark pretty fast, and without even knowing it, because you get bogged down so much. And just let them know, okay, we need to do something here. We need to change something.
Yeah.
That it's just I think the big shift from school to the responsibilities and expectations of this job, and being able to juggle that with everything else that might be going on in your life. And don't compare what you're doing with what somebody may be bragging about on social media or what another person might be saying. Your experience is your experience, right? And if it's not going as well as what you think somebody else is, I guarantee you they're suffering the same thing. They're just not telling. So those are kind of the main things that I was doing. And I said, just don't let loneliness set in.
Right.
Really, I mean, at the end of the day, you close your door and whatever happens, and you can get caught in that. You got to open the door and you got to go see other people.
Yeah. Yes. We don't teach in silos. Keep that door open, connect with others around you. I think sometimes as first-year teachers, teaching can be all consuming 24/7 if you let it. Have a life outside your career. You are so much more than only a teacher. You have interests, you have people in your life, you have hobbies, you have, other things going on in your life. Teaching is just one part of you.
Yeah. One of the things they mentioned as well is that whatever brings you joy, going to yoga, going to the gym, walking your dog in the park, whatever it might be, do it on the way home from school. Don't go home.
Yeah.
Don't go home and then hope or think it's going to happen, because you get home, you're tired, you eat, you might have a little bit of work to do, and then you just want to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So do it on the way home before you get home. And that way that you get that in, and you're going to be way more productive in the evening that way as well. And so that was one thing that they had mentioned as well. That was really helpful to them, to make sure that they're seeing their parents or seeing their friends or whatever it might be, to get that and make it a priority. And no matter how tired you feel getting into your car, going home, go do whatever makes you feel good, because the rest of it will make the rest of the day better.
Oh, I love that. That's a great tip. I love how you shared, throughout this survey that you shared with the recent grads, being flexible in your teaching, working on time management, planning in chunks, find a person you can trust. Don't compare yourself to others, because on social media, that's the highlight reel, right? Those are all the highlights. There's tons of other stuff that has happened that's not being shown on social media, and do what brings you joy. Larry, this conversation has brought me a lot of joy, and I feel inspired. Thank you so much. Before we end our conversation, are there any other tips or strategies you'd like to share with our recent grads?
I just, and I'll send this to you. Sam. This is direct from our graduates that are looking forward to, and it's just, it's probably a list of, I don't know, about 40 things. I asked them, I called it words of wisdom. What words of wisdom can you give the people, and then moving forward? So I'll send this to you, and I'm just going to double check to see some great quotes in here. Don't be afraid to take risks and try something new. If it doesn't work out, you can always address it the next day.
Yeah.
Be open to teaching whatever, because there's no guarantee. If you're dead set on grade 3, and even if you get hired, let's say now, and your principal says grade 3, in September, it could change.
Yeah.
And so I know I tell them, I said, listen, you think you're teaching grade 3? Don't spend hours and days and days and days preparing, because that could change. Remember that the students' needs are way more important than your lesson.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Be prepared to work your butt off, but enjoy the process, and make sure you set aside for self-care.
Yeah.
You don't have to know everything. The best kind of learning happens when you admit to students that you are learning alongside them.
But isn't that what Rita Pearson shares in her TED Talk about how she taught a lesson wrong, and then she had to come back and apologize to the students? I'm so sorry, I taught it wrong. Like, oh, it's okay. You were on a roll. We just let you go.
Absolutely. Eat lunch with staff. It's a shortcut to know everything that's going on. And here's the last one is have some humility as you are entering and beginning a new career. Engaging in career-long learning requires us to accept we don't know everything.
As teachers, we're lifelong learners. That's one of the perks of the job, right? We keep learning, we keep growing, just like we do alongside our students. Larry, this conversation was so fun. I very much enjoyed learning from you, your story, your tips for graduates. How can my listeners get in touch with you after our conversation today?
Yeah, you can. Probably the easiest is just, and I'm totally happy you give them my email.
Oh, wonderful.
My email address, and they can email me directly. And if any of them have any questions, kind of my expertise areas in those diverse learners, everything from learning disabilities to ADHD to autism to behavior. I have just libraries of strategies and things. And if they want to hear a crazy story, I'm happy to share that as well. But if they want some information, some strategies with regards to working with those diverse kids, that I'm happy to give them anything that they would like. So share my email, have them anything they would like. It'd be a pleasure for me to help them out.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Larry, for your time today.
You're welcome.
All right, EduMagicians, remember, you have the EduMagic within you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the EduMagic New Educator Podcast. If you found it helpful, please leave a rating and review or share it with a friend. Always remember, you have the EduMagic in you.